Hey, welcome back to the Real Estate Excellence Podcast. Today, I have an amazing agent who has stormed onto the Northeast Florida scene. I've admired her social media, specifically her Instagram, so we could dig in there and what she's doing there. Consistent and strategic posting. She's a veteran of the U.S. Army. I'm going to call her LT here through the show. So let's welcome Lieutenant Elizabeth Elliott.
Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for coming on such short notice, but I definitely wanted to get you on. And then when I saw you move brokerages recently, I'm like, hey, she's in the building half the week here with me. So let's get her up, because I really, a lot of things I had Krista Mashore on. I don't know if you saw that episode, but Krista Mashore is a huge real estate agent, and she has dug into being a digital marketing expert. And one of the things, and I'm sure, as we go over we were talking about Landmark this morning and the different trainings, a lot of people are training on social media, but there's only a small percentage that are getting it and doing it right and putting themselves out there, which I think you've done quite extensively. And obviously, I don't know what we'll dig into what you're, because you do some creative Instagram posts, and what's that take to learn all that. But I want to kick off the show as I always do. Where are you from?
I am from all over, I guess. Army brat. My dad got out right as I was born, but I was born in Alabama.
I guess that answers the question of why you were in the Army.
Yeah. I mean, all kinds of reasons. But no, I was born in Huntsville, Alabama, but my parents are from Florida. My dad's from Ocala. My mom's from St. Augustine. And my grandparents were from St. Augustine since 1913. Like, our family's been here. My grandfather's sold real estate insurance across from Castillo de San Marco in the 60s, So my family's like entrenched in the history, and my uncle's an architect who worked on the Casa Monica. I mean, it's entrenched in St. Augustine. So when I got out of the Army, I was like, where am I going to come back to? And this is home to me, because I spent all my summers here, all my weekends here. And then we moved back to Florida when I was like 10 to Orlando, where my dad's company opened a new office. And so, we came from Orlando to St. Augustine all the time. And as a kid, it was really annoying because I wanted to hang out in Orlando.
I just got a epiphany. Is your grandfather still with us?
He passed away before I was even born. So sad. But he was a Navy veteran, machinist mate.
Right.
He's a badass.
Well, I was just thinking, what would be so cool would be to go down there and him talk about, you do a video with him talking about the things that he did. How that would be a great thing to have on your YouTube page or something.
My mom would love that.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So you're in Huntsville. How long are you there? You said you're in the Army. I imagine your dad got moved around a little bit.
I mean, he got out. My mom basically was like, if you want another kid, you got to get out of the Army. So he got out of the Army. They had me. And they were defense contractors. And so I was there till age 10. And then my sister graduated high school. She left. She was in Air Force ROTC. And so when she went off to college, it was a good time for us to move to Orlando. So basically been a Florida native since then. High school, middle school, Orlando. And then I went to UF right after high school, and then I went to University of Miami after that. And then I've been all around Florida.
So was an Army ROTC scholarship? Is that the route you took? What's the route that took you? And then just express this, because I think a lot of people don't understand. I grew up in a household with my dad was an enlisted Marine, and there's only a small percentage really. Although there's a lot of veterans out there, but there's really a small percentage, because a lot of them are multiple generations, like your family. And what's it like, what you felt like you and your sister both, as females, both served. And that's probably very rare. But you grew up in a family with a, history of serving.
Right.
Now, what was that like? And then, what was, I guess, the enticing part of you going and taking, obviously music, we're going to talk about that, but taking that into the Army, because I assume you didn't have to do that. No, so what kind of led you to make you feel that was the route you wanted to take?
You're asking such good questions. This is like my entire childhood culminating into this decision. But I mean, my mom talked about her dad a lot growing up, and he was in World War II. And then my mom and dad met at University of Florida in ROTC. And that was the 70s, where it was the first time they were allowing women in ROTC, and my mom was in it.
Oh, wow.
And that's how they met, on a run, I think. And so, they got married, and my dad commissioned, and they moved to Germany. And my mom did not take her commission. She actually, went the wife route, the Army wife route. And, when they were in Germany, they had my sister. And so that's the backstory before I ever came around.
Yeah.
And then, of course, growing up, very veteran, military-friendly family. And my sister knew she wanted to be a pilot like her whole life. And that was just always
her dream.
Her dream. And I thought that I would be like an engineer or something. I'm a very mathematical, Virgo perfectionist type person. But I also was a musician, and I harnessed that. And so as I got older, I was really, really good at math and really, really good at music, and I had to kind of figure that out. So when I went to University of Florida, I actually started out as an engineering major with a minor in music. And because I thought...
Did you play instruments through your younger years?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Like, I wanted to be a music major, but I think in the back of my mind, I was like, oh, that won't make my dad happy, And still, I mean, it basically came down to doing computer engineering. I was in front of a computer for 12 hours a day. I like people too much. It was just not going to be for me. I need to interact with other people and make people happy. Yeah. And music was that for me. And so anyway, I auditioned to be a full-time music major, and I wanted to be a teacher because, as any musician gets where they are from learning from someone else. So I wanted to pass that on. So I went music ed, and I was terrified to tell my dad that because my Florida Bright Future Scholarship was going to probably not carry me through all 5 years it took to complete the University of Florida. But no, I was never going to be in the Army. Like, I kind of felt like the black sheep of the family because everyone was engineering and military. And I was like, la la, music, and I was in the band. I was in the Pride of the Sunshine marching band with the Tebow years. It was the best time ever. And still, I wasn't going to be in the Army. Like, I wanted to be a college band director. I wanted to take over for director of bands at the University of Florida one day.
Right.
That's what I wanted to do. And to get there, I knew as a woman, I needed to probably go get my master's degree right away, just because you can feel pigeonholed into being a middle school director or an elementary school music teacher. And I just wanted to show that I was very serious about high-level music. So I went straight into my master's. And then after my master's in conducting from Miami, I went into high school band directing. That's kind of the next step.
So you're at about 24, 25 at this time?
Yeah, I think I graduated UF around 22 years old. And then I graduated Miami around 24. So as a first-year teacher, I was 24. And my students were like 18, thinking I was like cool and whatever. So I went and taught. I taught for 3 years, and I loved it. But man, the pay sucked, and and I loved my students so much. But I really wanted to make music at a high level, and I knew that if I was doing high school band directing for the next 20 years, it was going to be a lot of the same stuff for 20 years.
And if there's anything they're going to cut, that's one of those things they're going to, art and music, right?
Yeah, and that's not just in teaching, but that's in the Army too. The musicians are going to constantly be fighting for their jobs everywhere, and I learned that when I was in the Army too. You're always trying to defend your program. And that can just burn you out. But anyway, I traveled the country and did a lot of conducting symposiums and workshops, and made a name for myself. And then, and I got better and better. Made a lot of mistakes and got better, and then kind of got recruited.
All right, so you jumped to you finish your master's degree. You teach for 3 years, and you're kind of like, how am I going to grow? So the Army comes across in front of you at this point?
So in the summertime, as teachers, you go to a lot of clinics, right? You want to become better. And so I traveled a lot, and I conducted all over the place. I actually conducted at UNF. That was my very first conducting symposium, was at University of North Florida in, 2011. 2011 in Jacksonville. I drove up here and conducted there. And basically, you're going to conduct a group, and then they're going to tear you apart. And that's what a conducting symposium is. And you have to be really vulnerable and just allow them to, because it's the only way you're going to grow. And so you stand in front of 100 people, and then there's going to be someone who ripped you to shreds, and then you go cry in the bathroom, and then you go do it again. And you just do it again and again and again. And so that's what I did for 4 years or something. I just would go to all the symposium. I went to Chicago. I went to Washington, D.C., and the Army they started doing one. They started doing the Army Conductors Workshop. And so they would bring in these bigwig, big papa teachers that are like big names in our industry, and you would conduct a bunch of people who all went to Juilliard and Eastman, and and they would try to rip you to shreds. And like basically, the further along you get, the less ripped to shreds you get, and you start getting compliments. They go, "Oh, that was really nice," and you go, "Okay, I don't suck."
Well, now they've seen you a couple times now, I'd imagine, because some of these people are at the same different symposiums are seeing you pop up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I conducted the Army Band in that had to have been like 2014, I think, was my first time conducting them in that workshop. And I think I did a decent job, so they remembered me. And then I just kept, pounding the pavement, basically. And then eventually I got a call saying that they were going to hold an audition. They only take like one a year, conductors. Like, it's a really hard job to get. And a lot of people apply and don't get it. And so I was like, I'm just a teacher. Like, what are you talking about? I don't have a doctorate yet. That's kind of the next step, is to go get your doctorate. And a lot of the people I competed against for that job already had a DMA. And I said, okay, well, sure, I'll apply. And I had to put together like a reel, like an actual, not an Instagram reel, but like a YouTube page of all my pieces and concerts and stuff. And then they narrow it down to like, I think, top 5 out of, I don't know, dozens. And then the top 5, they fly you to DC, and there's like a 2-day long audition process. You have to play your instrument. You conduct the band. You conduct the chorus. There's a lot of music, theory tests and stuff, and you got to pass all of that. And then they offer you the job. And if you win the job out of all those people, you feel like a rock star. But then
now you have to join the Army.
But now you got to go to basic training. So you're on top of the world. It's like a really hard decision. When I got the offer, I said they wanted me to accept right then. I was like, I got to go talk to my husband because this is a big deal. And I didn't know if I was going to get it. I was shocked. I was the only one to get offered the job. So, I went home. I took a week and really thought about it and had a lot of heart-to-hearts and crazy decision. But then I was off to basic training.
The average civilian doesn't realize the kind of stuff goes on. I've seen this with doctors as well. When the Army needs something, or any of the services need skilled, bringing a skill from the outside in this case. So that employment contract, you're off the basic training. Is there initial commitment?
So I was an officer, right? So an officer has an initial contract. You have to go, that's if you pass basic training, you go to officer candidate school, and then you have to pass everything without getting injured. And then once you complete officer candidate school, you go to your BOLIC, which is officer leadership course. And then once you get through that, then you go to your unit and you complete your contract. So I think the initial contract is 3 years, but then after that, as an officer, you're a free agent. You can walk anytime. And what they do is they throw more money at you the longer you're in, to keep you.
Right.
But you don't have to re-enlist like an enlisted soldier would.
Right. You're not recommitting to another period of time.
Right.
So, these opportunities are out there. And, I mean, so in this whole, when you really think about it, from the time you said, yes, I'll take the job. I'll join the Army.
It took a year.
Before you were actually doing what you actually are technically hired to do.
Like a year and a half. I mean, I accepted the job in May of 2016, finished up that year teaching. I had a delayed entry because I needed to help my husband move across the country and start dental school. Oh. And so I didn't go until October.
No kids yet.
And so October I shipped out. So all I did all summer was like work out and try to get my body ready. And then
was that part of the? I would imagine part of the interview process was. Did they actually?
Yeah, I had to take a PT. I had to take a PT test before the audition. Yeah. I mean, they had to make sure that I was physically fit. I mean, people will go to that audition and they'll look at them and go, this person is not going to make it through basic training. And that's a problem with not just musicians, but in the Army in general. Like, there's not enough young people in shape.
I think it's 70%, they say, of 18 to 35 or something, or whatever, 18 to 30 that are physically not fit. I had a little side note for everyone here. He's no longer at the Citadel, but the Citadel was studying this issue, and it's an issue with all the services, but also they also brought in veterans into this study. But the reality was that these kids are walking around in Crocs, and now they're required to wear boots or shoes, and they're getting shin splints just walking around the campus at the Citadel. Let alone obviously the problems that in boot camp. The percentage that are getting injuries or having to be discharged because they do get an injury that
Yeah.
it's not recoverable.
Right.
They could do it. Yeah, it is an issue.
It happened when I was in basic training. I want to say, especially women. I mean, uh, out of the 4 platoons in my company, there was 1 female platoon, and it was half the size of the male platoons. So out of a company of 100, you maybe had 20 females. And then out of those 20 females at the beginning, we maybe had half of that graduate basic. So because people get, hip fractures or shin splints, all of that stuff happens. People get injured, and then the Army's like, sorry. And
I cringe every time I go down the street. I see a kid on one of those motorized scooters, or I saw the motorized bike, which I know some of those cost $1,500, $2,000 the other day. And I'm watching this probably 8-9-year-old riding this motorized bike. And I'm like, these kids need to be biking. They need to be walking and running and playing and doing what we did when we grew up, forget about golf carts in our communities, but that it's causing a problem later in life. They can't handle just some basic. It's not like the Army's, it's tough, obviously, but it's not like they're putting you out there in a point to try to injure you either. Wow. They're pushing your limits. I think everyone has to push the. That's one. What is one? Because one question I have here. What is one thing though? I mean, that you learned about yourself?
Oh man.
Even through this through that entire process, because what you were saying to me, how those, even just going to the symposiums, how they were kind of tearing you down.
Yeah.
That's what
basic
the Army
training does. Yeah, they tear you down. You show up, I'm 28 years old at basic training, 10 years older than everyone else. My drill sergeant was like 26. He sees the paperwork. He's like, this dummy is 28. Why is she here? He has no idea what I'm doing there. Like, that I'm going to go be a musician and
they don't even know that.
All they see on the paperwork probably is officer candidate. 09 Sierra, that was my MOS in basic. You're an 09 Sierra, and they just see everyone who's about to go to OCS. There's maybe 10 of us in the company that were going to go officer, and they're just like, we're going to make these guys' lives living hell right now because they only have us for 12 weeks,
right.
And then we're going to go to OCS and become officers. So in like a few months, we're going to outrank our drill sergeants.
Right.
So they're going to run us into the ground essentially.
Right.
And so 09 Sierras, we had extra work. We had to leave early on the ruck marches and basically run them and things like that instead of, march the rucks. We were running them.
Do you think that it was not only because obviously the obvious, yes, you have these drill sergeants and how you've got these, female wannabe officers, right? That's probably how they look at it.
Yeah.
But they were actually also making you do the extra because you were the officer.
Right.
Because
they want you to be tougher than everyone else. Mm-hmm.
Yes, or perceived to be in front of every. But what did you learn about what did you learn about yourself through this whole process that we just?
I learned that I'm very resilient, and as you get older, you're like, man, I don't want to be resilient anymore. Everyone calls me resilient. Why can't things just be easier so that I don't have to learn to be resilient? But I learned that I was a lot tougher than I thought, and I think a lot of people learned that about me too. They probably thought I was insane to go off and join the Army, and then I think it was really OCS. OCS is an infantry officer basic course, so basically they're teaching all of the officers to be infantry officers. So you're going out into the woods and you're learning like Vietnam War tactics. You're leading a fire team or a squad to take on the enemy and take them out. And so when you're a squad leader, they're trying to. There's like captains out there that were running the course and trying to screw you up, man. They want you to fail. They do want you to fail because they only want the best of the best.
Right.
And so while I was out there, I mean, I definitely went to the hospital one time because I got really dehydrated and got rhabdomyolysis, which is when your body starts to break down and eat itself. Like protein goes into your bloodstream because you have no more fat. It's only muscle, and it starts to break down your muscle. I mean, it was real bad. And then finally recovered from that, went back out to the field, completed the course. But, there was a time I remember August of, it was now the next year, August of 2017 is my final month of OCS. We were in a field training exercise. Is Georgia in August. It was like 100 degrees. We're in wool socks and boots in full uniform. I had a rucksack on filled with ammo. I was on the weapons squad, 4th squad, carrying a
Your bag's no lighter than the men's, I would
Oh,
imagine.
hell no.
Still the 40 pounds.
Oh, there is no difference.
Yeah.
If anything, it was more because I was on weapons squad. There's 4 squads in a platoon, and the back squad in the back of the line is the weapons squad carrying all the heavy okay, and sorry, beep. And so I was in charge of carrying the 240 Bravo, which is the heaviest weapon that we carry. That is actually like a crew served weapon. And to carry that, you have to have 2, we call them ammo bees, who carry your ammo for you. And they carry the tripod itself for a 240 Bravo is like 25 pounds. And the 240 Bravo is a 40-pound weapon. I mean, it's a huge, it's got to be like 4 feet across, and it's heavy. And then you've got you're strapped with ammo, and then you're basically climbing a hill that's like made of mud. I was for 4 or 5 hours carrying that thing with a rucksack on my back. So I think they were trying to kill me, and they would be like, incoming, and everyone had to drop down on their weapon.
Get up.
And so you drop down on your weapon, then you got to jump up and run 100 yards, and then another incoming, and jump down. So they're literally trying to put your body through the test to see.
Well, I think
your
slight delay of we can call it injury was probably a badge of courage for them, because rather you sprained your ankle and went in versus you totally dehydrated and your body was you pushed your body to the nth degree.
I really did. I literally the day that happened, we had done a 5-mile run. I was the platoon leader at the time, and they put you in these leadership positions for you to practice leadership. Right. And I was the PL, as we call it, and I had bronchitis or something. I remember we formed up at 5 a.m. and I'm like in front of the formation coughing my lungs out, and they're like, hey, Elliott, you want to go to sick call? And I'm like, I'm not a sick call ranger. And so we went and we ran that 5 miles, and then we got back to form up on the field, and I just hit the deck, man. I just went saw black.
Yep.
They ice sheeted me, which is when you're really hot, and they have ice, sheets that were in a bucket of ice, and they ice sheeted me. They strip you down. They called an ambulance. I'm getting put in an ambulance in front of 500 soldiers. They thought I died. I mean, I showed up the next day. I went to the hospital that day. The next day I showed up to the history class in the morning, and I got a round of applause as I walked in, because people didn't know if I was dead or alive. They're like, oh, she's alive. Yay. But then, of course, I got recycled into the next company.
Where does that come from? Is that something that was instilled from your parents, your dad? I mean, because the average person would have, if they
gone to sick call.
They've gone to sick call. They would have. And
oh man,
we've all seen it.
Stubbornness
but
is what it comes.
There's a different person that pushes themselves to the extreme. Now we see some of these extreme sports, or I think of John Richardson all the time. He ran a 4-minute mile. I don't know if you're John at Remax at Unlimited. He ran a 4-minute mile. There's less than a couple thousand people that have ever done that.
Wow.
And now they're doing triathlons, which is pushing yourself to unbelievable levels. What was in you not to, or were you kind of coached? Your dad said, don't be the don't go call sick, because you got a cough. What's
right. Well, it's a pride thing.
What'd you call it? What'd you call it, Ranger?
We called it sick call ranger.
Sick call
Those people
ranger.
oh,
my
ankle hurts. I'm gonna go to sick call. It's like you knew the people who kept going. They were just trying to get out of that run, because they would only go to sick call on a long run day. And I'm like, that's not me. I never want to ever, especially being a female officer. You want to be better than everyone else. I feel like same as being a conductor. I felt like I needed to just be better than the guys to prove that I deserved to be in the same room. And
do you feel having that mindset that I think it's a mindset. Going through those years of going to symposiums, getting pretty much slapped in the face every time you go, like you said, crying in the bathroom, and then coming out, that now you're in the Army, you're like,
this is easy.
I'm really about to take a position that's everything you pretty much dreamed about.
Right,
I mean, unless you're with some big the Boston Pops or something like that.
Exactly.
This is you're in the echelon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the thing that kept me going. When things got tough, it was like, I can't fail at this. Like, if I fail at OCS, I become what's called needs of the Army, meaning I didn't get commissioned. Now I'm going to have to go enlisted. You better pray they have a flute player spot somewhere for me to go fill. Otherwise, I'm going to go be a tank mechanic. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. I have a master's in music from a conservatory. I am not about to go be a tank mechanic. So that can happen.
That's interesting right there. So they hire you,
but you have to make it.
And if you don't make it through the officer candidate school, I mean, you made it through basic training, officer, and then obviously you kind of knew you were ready for officer candidate school. So, basic training is the throw you in the cold water type thing. Now you're like you're in shape already. You've been running and all that type of thing, know how the Army works and all that type of stuff. So OCS, I imagine, was just graduating. Like you said, if you don't make it, even though the Army didn't pay for your college, right? You still have your commitment because you joined the Army,
right? So then you have to be an enlisted soldier, and there's only a certain number of slots per MOS. So let's say there just isn't a slot for the instrument I play, then I would have to just get thrown into the pool. And luckily, I did really well on that ASVAB test. They were like, you want to go medical? Are you sure you don't want to be a medical person? I'm like, no, I'm music. They're like, okay. But I mean, it was a trip, man. It was a trip, but I got to meet some amazing people while I was there. So
that's, and I think, a lot of people always ask me, why did I go to the Citadel? I wanted to take a road less traveled. I feel, you learned about yourself. I think you've certainly taken a road less traveled. The average person doing or wanting to do what you want to do with a master's degree would not go join the Army. They probably would never apply to that job. Yeah. They would probably said, even if they said you were going to be the best one and you're gonna make, they were like, no, but I'm not gonna do it with the Army. Right. And the fact you took the road less traveled and it's made all. So you end up you stayed with the Army till 21, you said.
Yeah, 2021.
So what are you're starting to wind down your time, and when I imagine you were planning when you were step out, what are you thinking about doing at that time?
Oh man. Well, when I got out of the Army kind of at my peak, because I got to do some amazing stuff with the group in DC with some amazing musicians. And I think that I thought that it was going to take me 20 years to get to that point, that fulfilled, I wanted to be a full bird colonel and be in charge of that group. And I thought that would be what I needed to feel fulfilled. And I got to do some amazing concerts, and that I just was like, I'm never going to be able to top that. I mean, I felt so filled up from some things that I got to do. And right around the same time that those big concerts were happening, I also was pregnant with, we lost our first, and that was a big deal. And then we had our second, and COVID happened a month before we had him. So then, of course, daycares are shutting down, and all of that stuff starts to play into it. And then I got a PCS to Fort Bragg, and I was in charge of the All-American Chorus out of Fort Bragg, 82nd Airborne Division. And while I was there, I was also trying to be a new mom, and COVID was going on. So it was like, man, every time the daycare shuts down, I got to drop everything and go get them. And the Army was just not conducive for me to be the kind of mom I wanted to be. And like I've told you, I'm a perfectionist. I will stay in the thing until I feel like I've figured it out and done the best job I could. And that was with music, and that's going to be with real estate, but it's also with motherhood. And it got to a certain point where my kid was 6 months old, and I'm like, I refuse to suck at motherhood. Like, if I'm going to suck at something, it's not going to be being a mom, and I can't do both of these things to the level that I want to. And I just said, I'm going to have to get out. I don't know what I'm going to do, but luckily, my husband was a dentist. So we're like, let's take some time, figure this out. Maybe I go get my doctorate. Maybe I just stay home till the kids are in kindergarten. I don't know.
Right.
And so that's what we decided to do. And I think that was the goal, was let's just be a mom till the kids are in kindergarten. I did it for about a year and a half. And I was like, man, all I do is talk to a baby all day. Like, I really loved that time. I will cherish that time. But I realized also in that year, that wonderful year with Oliver, while I was also pregnant with another one. So imagine being giant and then running after a 2-year-old.
I saw your pictures on Instagram.
Man,
your pre and post.
It's exhausting to be pregnant and have a toddler at the same time. It's just really hard. So, and I'm a people person, and I like to talk to people, and I like talking to adults. And you just get lonely at home with a baby. And so I started going, okay, I had my second son, Theo, and while I was at home nursing him, I was like talking to my best friends, what should I do? What should I do? I was going to either go be a personal trainer or go into real estate. That was going to be it. Because we haven't talked about this yet, but my parents flipped a lot of homes when I was growing up.
Oh, okay.
And I watched that. They've owned 17 houses or something like that. A lot of them in St. Augustine. They buy them, they flip them, they sell them. Like, I got to watch that and learn a lot. And people just kept telling me I would be great at real estate. I said, okay, well, let's give this a shot and see how it goes. If I fail, then I failed, and we go on to the next thing.
Right.
So I got my license. 2 weeks later, I was like hired at a brokerage, and then it was like, I guess I need daycare now, and then it just took off from there.
Did you feel? I mean, because you just had gone through. I mean, music is, or competing to be at the different levels of music does take, you are putting a lot of time, practice. Like you said, going to symposiums. Now you join the Army, and you're dealing with people. They are working towards perfection, right? They're trying to be, and I imagine you met some great musicians that go through the services. Like one I graduated, I remember graduating high school with, and he went on, and he was a trumpet player. But anyway, they're really looking for all these A personality, trying to be the best.
Very type-A.
Then all of a sudden you're at home, raising an infant. So you're going at 1,000 miles an hour, and then you come. Did you feel like?
Oh, lost, totally lost. Every veteran, when they're getting out or they're out, you could be out for 20 years and still feel lost. But I felt lost in that year because I rolled up my identity into being a musician. And I read that book, Atomic Habits, recently. And he talks about how he had rolled up his entire identity into being a baseball player. And then you get injured and you're like, what am I now if I'm not this thing?
And you get a head injury or something?
Yeah, he got hit in the face with a baseball bat.
Yeah.
And then he had to basically start from scratch. And I felt like that. I'm like, I've lost this huge part of me. And now I realize I didn't lose that part of me. I am separate. I, Elizabeth, the person, am separate from that. Like, I keep getting like labeled like I'm a veteran, or I'm Army, or conductor, Mom, I am me. Like, I am Elizabeth Elliott, and my qualities of hard work, dedication, being kind to others, like all of those things are who I am. And I'll just carry those facets of my personality into whatever the field is that I decide to do. And I know I'll succeed because I just have to stay who I am and take those things with me. So
because you've picked your face up out of the dirt enough times. Yeah.
So I guess I'm not afraid to fail. Like, someone asked me the other day, what does failure look like for you in real estate? And I'm like, I guess if I just don't meet my goals, if I don't sell any houses, like, well, I've already done that. I've already gone through the beginning stages of not succeeding, and I already see what happens.
Right.
So, I'm not afraid.
Get back on somewhat on track. We're always on track. All right. So we talked a little bit about pre-show, because this is something I like to always get out of agents, and when they got and how they got started. And you've changed brokerages a couple of times. Now you're here at Roundtable Realty, and you can spin off of why you went to Roundtable Realty. But if you were advising someone new today, one of your girlfriends came up and said, "Hey, I want to get into real estate," and you told them all the good, bad, and indifference of it, and they're like, "I'm good, let's go." What are some of the things that you would tell them to do? There's 2 or 3 things that they need to do before they even walk into that first or signed on with a brokerage.
Right. If I could go back and talk to myself, because that was me in the fall, I think I was just so excited and pumped once I had my license to just go jumping into it that I didn't research. And when you don't do the research, then you really don't know what you're looking for. And there's no way to know what you're looking for if you don't talk to multiple brokerages. You just need to do that. And so before I came to Roundtable, I talked to 6 or 7 different brokers and different places, large firms, small boutique firms. And really got an idea of what everybody can offer. So I would say definitely talk to different brokerages because you don't even know what questions to ask. If you only go talk to one and it sounds great, wow, okay, thanks for the offer. Like if you're not in real estate and you're like, I was in a highly competitive job before this, and you're like, I got offered the job. Like, wow, I'm not used to that. In music, they don't offer the job to everyone. Like when you go interview brokerages, every single one of them pretty much is going to offer you a spot.
Yeah, if they've entertained you to come in, you're 90% in the
Yeah, that's not normal in other fields, especially in music. So I thought, okay, they offered me a spot. Okay, let's go. It's really the reverse. You're interviewing them. You've got to find out if they're going to be the right fit for you. It's not just them interviewing you. So that would be the first thing. And then the second thing I would say is, like, if you have a stable job, try and keep it. I've seen other people, or at least stay on at least part-time, because I've seen people quit everything and maybe they have some money saved, but they don't have enough. And then here we are 2 months later and they're going back to their job and
or
they're
have
quitting.
a spouse who can support.
Yeah, I think the worst advice I've ever seen happen is I saw someone tell a brand new agent, quit, go full in, jump right in, quit that job. And she did. And then 2 months later, she hadn't made a sale. It's like, well, no, you're not going to make a sale in your first 2 months. Like, that's really rare. Right. And then now they've got to go back to like serving tables or something. It sucks.
Knowing what because I imagine that year and a half, there was a lot of time when you could had some peace, whatever, a few minutes a day that is, for a mom raising two young ones, really analyzing yourself, right? Because you're a little different than the average person. Obviously, you've like you said, you've had your face in the mud enough times and have risen to high places, doing what you loved doing. A lot of people have not ever experienced the very lows that you've had and the very highs that you've had. They've kind of just had this, which I think a good part of our population, we talked about not being, fit enough to serve. It's because they're on this steady cruise control course. And now that you're looking back, and my question is, knowing yourself to know what broker, because all these brokerages, and you've seen a few, they do things differently, and you have to find someone who either you go out there all by yourself and you just are just a solo. I don't, the broker's just someone who, has the insurance and all the other jazz or whatever in the real estate world, and you have to sign up under somebody and do it, and because you already have the real estate knowledge and know-how, and you go, or you're that person who doesn't really have a lot of real estate knowledge, but you have a huge amount of self-confidence because of the things that you've gone through in life that you can conquer. Hey, so what if I fail? I'm going to get up and I'm going to go and attack, and I've always won at the end of the day. So you're a little bit different. When that girlfriend's talking to you about, hey, I should go talk to all these brokers. What do they need to know about themselves first?
I think you need to know what makes you tick. Like, what's going to be the thing that makes you succeed? And for me, it's a routine. I knew that for me, I needed to be in a place where I could come in every day. I need that separation from home because if I'm at home, I'm going to want to do laundry or I'm going to do something.
Right, get distracted.
Yeah, and I will stay here. Like last night, Howard was like, "Are you going to shut the place down?" I mean, I work really hard, and I needed a place that I could do that where first of all, like the space itself, the energy in the place needs to be one that's productive and happy. And so when I came here, I immediately felt like welcomed by a family. I needed that feeling, and that might be the Army in me too, the teamwork and the camaraderie. I really thrive on feeling supported. I'm a words of affirmations person. Like, that's my love language. So I need I need Howard and Keith to be like, "You're doing great." That's all I need. Don't give me gifts. I just need an atta girl every now and then. And so I knew I was going to get that support, but I also want to be in the room. I want to be the dumbest one in the room. You've got to be a place where you're surrounded by people with so much more knowledge than you, so that you're going to be the 5 people you spend the most time with. And so I needed to put myself in a room with people that I respected, and that have a depth of knowledge. And so I was like 20, 30-year vets of real estate. Those are the people I need to know, and I need to talk to, and I need to take them to coffee and figure out what has made them successful over the years, because they're going to have seen so many things, ups and downs. And so over here at Roundtable, I just felt like family, good energy, happy place to work. Depth of knowledge is extreme. And I didn't need necessarily, I don't need the leads from a team. I need the experience to pull from, to ask questions. That's what I needed.
Do you, there's a credibility part in you. And I think I have the same thing. You know, I didn't spend the time in the Army, but I went to military college for 4 years. And when you see that colonel walk around, there's something about him or her. There's, whether I remember, doing PT test in the Marine Corps major doing satellites around the entire group, right? You're like looking at this guy going, now I'm his age. When I was 20, I'm now the age, and he's running circles around, and you just have this, they just have this thing about them. And I think the military kind of builds that credibility of these men and women, that when they when they walk in the room, there's a presence about them. And that's what that's what I hear when you're telling me what you're talking, that to walk in the room and know that you have Erica Jolis down there, and some of the others down there that have done it, and you can look at their numbers, and they're doing it, and they, just how they present themselves, how
and
Aaron
they're humble about it.
Yes.
Yeah, I also wanted, like, at the end of the day, when I made my decision to come here, it was, I want to be in a room full of rock stars that are experienced, but humble rock stars, where there's very little ego involved at all. And that's who I thrive to be around, because I've been around some of the best musicians that have ever lived. And I will tell you, the best musicians I've ever met in my life are incredibly humble and kind and welcoming, and they will make you feel like $1,000,000. And then the ones that are kind of good, they're kind of assholes. And I just don't, and being from 100%. The music world, I don't want to be in a room like that. I need to be in a room where it's just the humble people who have done it for 20 years. They want to drag you along with them. Like, come to this listing appointment with me. And I don't have to beg to be dragged along, but they're letting me,
You make me think of that. There was a video or short or whatever was one of the greatest, I don't know, he's a violinist or something. I forget what he was, but he went into the subway of New York. And he's playing, and of course no one knew who he was. And they didn't realize what they were listening to. And the fact that his instrument was thousands of dollars that he was playing on. No one took it, because he's just a humble person. He doesn't have to get out there on social media. He does what he does, and he's focused on it, and doesn't have to brag about it. I understand that part of it. You want to walk into that room and be around those people. There's an aurora around them, I always call it, that just of credibility, and the fact that they're humble about it, and and are willing to pour into you if you ask them.
Howard is one of those people that he wants to teach. Like, he talks about single agency. Like, he is the most passionate person about single agency. Like, as soon as I came in, he was teaching me from the moment I walked in the door. And every time I'm around him, he's sharing some kind of little nugget. And you'll be in some brokerages where that's just not it. Like, they just don't do that. And you can just tell there's a passion, not about numbers here. Like, the people over property thing is so true, because he wants to make me a better realtor. And I think one day I envision being a broker and having my own brokerage, all these things, because I'm setting myself up with people who know what they're doing, and they can do it in a kind way. And that's what I want to do one day. So,
well, longevity. I mean, if you want longevity in this business, it's doing the right things. And it may be not making money on a deal because it just went south, and you just got to please that customer, because hopefully maybe they'll refer you 2 or 3 over their lifetime to you. You've got to look at, it's got to be a long haul. I think a lot of real estate agents, and you agree or disagree with me, I think a lot of real estate agents are really only looking forward that next 30, 60 days. They don't actually start building their business to, these are consistent things you're going to do for the rest of your career.
Right.
Yeah.
They talk about like the successful real estate agents. They have ups and downs, but they're more like this.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's ones that are like really low and really high, and you just gotta kind of stay stable with it. I think you just have to have a routine. The atomic habits thing. It's like you wake up, you go to the gym, you go to work, you put in the time. You might not get a deal that month, or that week, but then you just keep going. You just keep on going, and eventually it'll all work out.
Too many people do quit early. It's that thing, swing the axe one more time. There's always that analogy, the guy's digging in looking for the gold, and then he quits and he walks away, and the next guy goes and swings the axe in the same hole, and there's the gold.
Yeah, it's called the plateau of latent potential, right? It's the water that has to be, it's 31 degrees Celsius and then it hits 32 and it boils, It's like people, they want the instant gratification, but they don't want to do all of the work to get there. I can't remember which team it is that has this story on the wall, but it's like the man who's chiseling at the rock, and one day it finally breaks all apart, but they don't see the 100 slams before that. They only see people celebrate the success, but they don't celebrate the work that it takes to get there.
And this is something I cut out of a reel. I was going back and looking at one of my old shows, and I cut this reel out, was the difficulty or the challenge mentally, I think, even for loan officers, real estate agents, is it's different for everybody. There might be somebody who comes in, and for whatever their reason, whatever they say is just they have a golden tongue, and it just all of a sudden they have people wanting to do business with them and whatever. But you don't know what their previous whatever years have been. That because when they did say it, it was gold. That all of a sudden all their friends and family wanted, and they're referring people. It's because whatever they had put in, and it's so unmeasurable to compare yourself to someone else, and when that tipping point's going to happen.
Right. I talk to new agents, and they go, I just want to be as busy as Elizabeth, blah, blah, blah. What do I do? And I go, well, you weren't there in August and September, and the phone is not ringing when you first start. And you just have to ignore everyone else and find what makes you unique. And be like, I had some really awesome, Shonda Campanero, she's going to hear this, but I talked to her at the Christmas party, in December, and I was like, tell me what I need to do to succeed. Like, what's the biggest lesson? You just got to ask those people those questions. Yep. And one of the things she said in her accent, like, I just stopped caring what other people think. Just walk into a room and you just got to not care. And I just, as soon as I took that to heart, because as a musician, you got to do it too. You're going to stand in front of a million people and do the thing. And I just was like, okay, like everyone keeps saying, put your face on social media and just throw your phone. Like, do the reel and then throw your phone. Don't care about the likes. Don't care about you're not going to like how you look. You're not going to like how you sound, but it's important because people are interviewing you on your content before they're deciding if they want to work with you before they even meet you. Right. And so you just got to stop caring what other people think, be yourself. And if people don't like you, fine. Like, I would rather attract the people that want to work with me than be told who I have to work with.
Because the reality is some of those people are so afraid of what someone may think about what they say. I mean, visually, you are who you are. I mean, they're going to see you, okay. But I think, would you agree that because some people are so afraid that they might say something that may offend someone, that they don't actually say the things that may attract other people?
Right. Yeah. I think you have to put yourself in the shoes. Like, think about who your target audience is. What's the niche, right? And who are those people? And what are their pain points? Like, what are they worried about? Why are they not buying the house? Like, what's the thing holding them back? Put yourself in those people's shoes and then answer the questions. That's what I try and do on my social media every day. Like, let's talk about what's in the news. Let's answer these questions and let's start a dialogue. So I use my stories all the time, right? Because those are the ones where people can reply directly back to you. And I get leads all the time through social media because you just have to be top of mind. You got to be the person that's talking about it. And then when they have they might watch you for 6 months and not say a dang thing. Yeah. It happens all the time. I've seen this person following me. And then finally they reach out and have a question. And I'm like, all right, cool. And now we're under contract, that's how it works. But you just have to stay consistent.
I think that, they say there's two things in life that are consistent: death and taxes, right? I think there should be a third thing in there is you are who you are. Now, can you change who you are a little bit? Yeah, you can also change your tax code too. You know what I'm saying? Or hopefully live a healthier life and live longer than if you stayed doing poor habits, right? You can change those things. But the fact that there are going to be people who don't like you, there's going to be negative people. But I think people, there was a meme this morning, I can't remember exactly, but to summarize it basically, there's good and evil. There's people who are going to like you, and there's people that are not going to like you. There are people who are going to hate you because you do great Instagram videos, and they can't seem to figure it out. But are they willing to go and ask you, hey, could you show me how to dress up some of mine, or what are some of the things that I can do? No, they sit there and just are negative, right? And they're in their own little world. There's people, those are people. That's just human nature. You're not going to change it. They have to change themselves. And I think a lot of people, I know some people personally, that they're so afraid of what someone might think. And it's like, oh, okay, I'm not personally insulting them.
Right.
It's not, because I believe this policy is better than that policy, that doesn't make me a bad person. That's just my background. I feel this is the way to go. The fact that someone's willing to actually make a decision and say, this is my feelings, I think this is the right thing to do, or and say something about it, versus someone who doesn't say nothing at all because they're afraid, well, I don't want to tell them that because they might believe that, and then they might be upset at me. So what?
Right.
Next,
Right.
and like you said, attracting, I think we attract like kind, right? We, our people have similar ads. But let's talk about your Instagram, because since we were leading into that, and I went off on that little tangent. When do you start? Were you playing with Instagram before you even got into real estate, or did you dive into it as part of it?
Oh gosh, all I had on my Instagram before real estate was like personal. Like I had a personal one that had just my family photos and my Army career and da 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 da. Like it was not something I used for business because I didn't have a business. I didn't need to promote anything.
You're just posting up pictures, maybe some short videos.
Yeah, just like here's my kids. Like everybody who's not using it for business does.
Right.
And then I realized as I created one for real estate, like it's an amazing tool. It's free. This is, so I did the thing that they tell you to do. I door knocked. I made cookies for everyone in my neighborhood. I went and delivered, like, here's your fall maintenance checklist with some cookies, like door knocking, like sweating my butt off in September. And I paid for calendars, and I like did all the things that you're supposed to do, the handwritten notes, and it just wasn't working for me. Like all of the mailers and stuff, the farming, it obviously you have to stick with it for like 27 touches or something before you'll get calls.
Yeah, the farming you have to commit to.
Right.
I mean,
but
I think a lot of people have had success. I mean, that's what Krista Mashore, that's what she teaches that at a high level with digital marketing.
But when you're a new agent, that's a lot of money.
Yes.
And you're like, oh, I can't like my poor husband's like, what? How much is that going to cost? Like it starts to add up. And when you're like, I don't have a paycheck to pay back all these expenses, social media is free. And so if you're a new agent, what I did, I finally, with Shauna's advice, she's going to hear this and be like, I don't know what she's talking about. I don't remember saying that. But you just stop caring what people think.
She will say that.
Yeah. And you just stop caring what people think, post the thing, and then watch the messages come in, because that's what's going to happen. It might take a few months, and you have to stay consistent with it. But I would just say, if you feel unconfident or you feel like self-conscious about it, just keep going and watch the messages come in, because people are smart and they can read through when you're being inauthentic to who you are. But if you are staying authentic, they're going to keep watching. They're going to watch you for months before they message you. So the only reason I started getting busy in January, February, March, April, and had that like really big month was because I started in August, and I just stayed consistent. And I doubled down on my social media in January. I just said, forget the farming. I'm just going to do the free thing. And people want that because they don't want to go to their door and answer the ring doorbell. They're like the cookies. Half the people I made cookies, they watched me deliver them to their doorstep through the ring doorbell. And then I would go to the next house, and then they'd peek out and grab the cookies and go back in. Like people don't want random strangers on their doorstep.
Right.
But they will follow you on Instagram.
Yes.
And then they will interview you for a few months before, I would say do that. And then also like go find the local pages and support small businesses. Like I buy the cookies from the local baker, and I I champion those people. Like, find the locals that are wonderful and champion small businesses, and then watch that do dividends for you in the future. Like, my hairstylist is going to be getting a house with me, and then her interior designer. It becomes a word of mouth thing, but you have to. It's a give and take.
Would you agree? Some of the content also you're putting out there, because you're putting out some, you're giving them some education, whether they're ready for it at that moment or not. Because like I said, they may not be ready for buying a home, and all of a sudden 6 months later, something in their life happens, and they go, "Oh, we gotta move," or whatever. But the fact that you're adding value to them, you're making them laugh, you're making them smile, but you're also throwing these little tidbits of education onto them. You start to build a credibility part of it.
Exactly.
You're not just, here's Liz again, she's at the beach or she's at the cookie shop. You're actually giving them some little nuggets of knowledge. As you were mentioning, Howard tries to drop on you when you walk in. He tells you the trivial thing, or we were talking about VA loans this morning when you came in, and some of the trivial stuff that you may never ever come across, but it actually starts to add credibility to you.
Right. You want to make yourself accessible, and the way you do that is by just being yourself. And then when they do have that question, they know who they're going to come ask. They're going to come talk to their friend. And that's what happens. People slide in those DMs, and they message me a question, and half the time I have the answer and half the time I don't. But they know. I'll say that on my page, like, "Hey, I'm not a mortgage lender. Like, I'm not an expert, but let me find out for you, or connect you with the right people." And just staying humble and saying, like, "Hey, like, I know what I know, but I also know what I don't know, and I'm never gonna fake it for you." And I think that also speaks highly, because people want to work with someone who's real, and they want to be with somebody who is in a room with experts.
All right, some of your stuff obviously looks like you planned it out, and then there's sometimes you're in the car and you just
I know, we're always in the car.
Yeah.
always in the car.
Do you, when you're structuring your Instagram, for those who are watching, and sometimes you got to hear this stuff 4 and 5 times.
Yeah.
As you go to different classes, you're like, I've heard the last 3 instructors have told me that same thing. Maybe I ought to do it. So tell us a little bit about how do you plan some of your content, and sometimes I imagine there's sometimes just a thought comes to your head and says, let's turn on the phone.
Yeah, it's a mixture of all the things. Sometimes it's a market. It's dependent on the market. Sometimes it's like, I got to get on here and talk about the market today. And then, sometimes I batch content. Everyone's got coffee contracts. I've used that. The captions app, I've used that. Keeping Current Matters. There's like all of these tools at our disposal, list reports. And so I just kind of, I started using all these different things. And what I did was I took little nuggets from each one, and I took it and made it into my own. So instead of just sharing a blog post from Keeping Current Matters that's got like my logo on it, I would rather go in there and like, let's read about what these points are that they're talking about, and then let me deliver it. Because people don't want to sit and read a blog post, from some website that they don't know.
Give us your insight on that. Why do you think that is more powerful? I mean, besides they don't want to read the blog post.
Because it's coming from someone they know.
Yeah.
And people are, it's like, I don't know we were at the Jack Drill producers thing. It was like, time with your face, like that's FaceTime that you're getting with them. And so it's duplicated. Every time someone can sit there and watch it, that's you having a coffee with somebody. You can't duplicate yourself 100 times.
Right.
But social media, you can put it up there. And now basically coffee contracts, they want people to come in and binge your content, right? They want your page to be a channel that they go to, and they scroll and they watch a video, and they go to the next one, they watch a video. And so that's FaceTime that you can't give because there's just not enough hours in the day.
And I've said numerous times on the show, probably 100 times in 147 episodes, your brain does not differentiate from the video. Those who might watching this video or watching this live on Facebook or YouTube right now, they don't differentiate whether you're sitting across from them or not when they're looking at a screen. And the fact that if they are scrolling through you and you're just simply giving them nuggets and nuggets and nuggets, you are getting all those. That's a touch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you throw in a picture of, you're grilling on a Saturday or whatever.
Yeah.
Like you're a human being too.
Yeah.
And so I think if a lot of people just post under contract, sold, that's all you're giving them, then who are you? Like, nobody wants to work with a robot. I'm a real estate machine, that I want to work with somebody I like know and trust, right? And I've learned that like is number one. They have to like you. And then I've even done polls on my Instagram, like, what do you want to see in a real estate agent? And really, like, the last thing people choose is someone knowledgeable in the market. Like, that's the thing people don't click yes to. Like, that's the most important thing.
Would you agree that sometimes, and I see it a lot of times, I do not like when real estate agents talk about interest rates. It's just something about it.
Yeah.
But
let the lenders do that.
Yeah, but then for the most part, it's over people. That's not why they buying and selling home. They to post what the interest rates are. Most people don't understand how that calculates into the payment. Now, if they call the lender and say, "What's my payment going to be?"
Right.
Yeah, they may not like it because 3% is better than 7%, but they don't know what is on a $400,000 loan. What's the difference in the payment?
Right.
They don't know that off the top of their head, and generally don't carry the calculator in their pocket.
Right. Instead of posting, "Hey, here's the rates today," maybe make a reel about here's what a 7% rate breakdown would do to your mortgage payment.
Or I think the better is the call to action. Call me and let's go over your situation. Because I think a lot of people have situations that after you start talking through it, then they're like, oh, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Or, oh, I guess I'm not confused because I thought there was 100 options. There's really only one or two for me, and here they are.
Right.
Now you've just cut it down. But I think we can give too much information on there and this is talking sales really from that standpoint. But while you were talking there, you mentioned Shonda. Obviously, you mentioned Howard and Keith and so forth. And you've said some things that I didn't even have to ask you about, and that's obviously your understanding. Again, I think it's because your past experience trying to perform at a high level that you were doing, being surrounded by people that are better than you in raising your game. What are some things that you've picked up? Or let's say, I want to say, what are some of the commonalities that you've heard from some of these different top people that you and I know that you've kind of chatted with, and you're like, oh yeah, so and so said that, Shonda said that. So what are some of the things that you've kind of?
You said it too. Like you have to be you. There is no other you out there but you. And so and this was in music too. When I was a band director, I wanted to be my high school band director. And well, guess what? I started out teaching and I started to emulate him, and that did not work well. Like I am not a tyrant when I teach. And neither was he either. I should not say that. But you can't go in the room and try to put on airs like you are this other person. Like I'm never going to go in and try to act like Shonda or act like Howard. Like I'm who I am, and this is me.
Right.
I'm not going to sit here and fake that I've been in real estate for 20 years. I have not. But I do have all this life experience, and I care about people. And so you just have to be you and not try to be anybody else. And I would say that if you can double down on find out, first of all, if you don't know who you are, you got to figure that out. And lean into the things that make you unique. But yeah, I would just say number one would be yourself. And then number two is be humble, because I've worked with some really great musicians that aren't humble. And then as soon as you realize that, you don't want to work with them anymore.
Right.
No one wants to feel like crap.
Have you run across a few real estate agents like that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, okay. Like most of the time I'm calling about a listing. Like I won't even give names, but I had a buyer looking to buy some land. I'll tell you a story. Like, buyer looking to buy some land. And I'm like, okay, cool. I can help you with that. And so some of these were in Palm Coast on Stellar. And so I'm having to call the agent. And, they just, oh, well, honey, if you aren't from around here, you should just refer them to me. And I'm like, so you want the buy and the list side? Like, no, this is my person. Can you just tell me what the acreage is, please? Or the dimensions of the lot, and just be kind. You never know who's on the other line, who you're talking to. Right. And I'm learning, not just the music world is small, or the real estate world is small. The world in general is small, and you're gonna see these people again at some point. Oh. And so just don't burn bridges. Be kind to everyone you meet, and be yourself, I guess. And that's not just real estate. That's in any job that you could ever be in. Yeah. Just all of those things will take you very far in life in general.
Well, they oftentimes say, oh, there's 12,000 agents in Northeast Florida, but really only a handful, that 1%, maybe if you want to stretch it to 2 or 3%, that are actually doing the business. And and this will lead into also going to the different events, but yeah, you don't know who's on the other end. You don't know who's going to be listing the house that your buyer wants, next month. And you've got to, approach it. I think some of the greatest advice that several of the agents that have been on is working together and collaborating, that we have a seller who wants to sell a house, we have a buyer who wants to buy it, and our goal is to get the closing. How are we going to get there? And, there's different bumps in the road. In your young career, you already realize, I'm sure there's been repair things and that forth, and you've renegotiate and so forth. But understand everyone has the same goal. I think with some of the horror stories I have, because my wife's an agent as well, and she always tells me, is some of these agents get combative almost on the phone with you, and it's like, hey, we're trying to sell a house here. What do we need to do to get this done?
You say the thing, like, we need this repaired or whatever. You submit the request, and then you say, like, you do it with kindness. Like, they say you win more flies with honey than with vinegar. It's like, that's a Southern saying. And it's true. I mean, you're not going to get very far in negotiating. You have to be an empathetic chameleon. And I can't remember who said that recently, but you have to read the room. You've got some buyers too. Like, I know with some buyers, I need to be the alpha female, like, work wife type person and drag them through the mud to get them to the closing table. And then I have some buyers that I'm like, I need to just sit back and help, like, they want to negotiate this deal, and I'm going to be like, you are the best negotiator I've ever seen. Like, you've got to learn to read the room and change depending on who you're talking to. And I think a lot of people, I've seen brokers and leads and all this, like, they stick to a script, like, say the same thing to the same,
no matter who's on the phone.
Yeah, no matter who it is, and that just doesn't work. I've seen it fail multiple times. I'm like, that you can't do that.
Right.
You got to know who you're talking to and know who your audience is. It's the same when I planned a band concert. Like, I'm not going to go plan a concert for a bunch of elementary schoolers and play Mozart. Right. We're going to play Moana or Frozen. Like, know who your audience is and know how to deliver it in a kind way.
Right.
It'll take you far.
That's great advice. You said you did your little is it marketing hug? I can't remember what
it's a marketing hug.
It's called marketing hug.
I was like, she has a marketing name for her marketing a meeting. It's a marketing hug.
Yes. So Aaron wasn't on very long ago. Regular listeners know Aaron Salem as the marketing director at Roundtable Realty. Liz just came on with them here in the last week or so, and so she's had her marketing hug that Aaron was talking about. Tell us how that went. How did you know? I mean, you knew of the appointment, but did you have any pre-expectations of what was going to happen?
No, I mean, I know that when I interviewed at multiple brokerages, they all go, oh, here's our marketing person, or you can pay for this a la carte for listing sheets or whatever. Every single brokerage has their own thing. And so to come in here and I'm like, wait, we have that here? Like, there's a person who will make me a logo and I don't need to, like, pay a separate fee. And not only that, she's good at it and she's thoughtful about it. And it was fast. The next day I joined the brokerage, and like 2 days later we had our meeting, and she had 20 logos already designed. And not only that, she had reasons behind each logo as to why she made the choices she made. And I was so impressed. It was so thoughtful, and she's very good at her job. Yeah. So, and she works hard. You walk into that office, she's working. She's editing a video for somebody, or, she will tell you, like, if you want something done, email me and get on my calendar, because you can't just walk into my office and ask for something.
Well, I mean, is this something I got from her? Just wowed me. Never realized, because you don't know what you don't know, but sitting down with her, I knew what she did, but actually sitting down on the podcast and digging into her and hearing her story and her background and her mindset of how she, attacks, what she does. And that's raising the agents, supporting the agents, and making, giving you guys that marketing side from that, and how the creative way. So what are just as she took you through, what are some of the things she's asking? What are some of the things she's digging from you in this marketing hub? Tell us how it went.
Like, for example, when we were going through all the different logos, what you want is it's a very subconscious thing. When people look at your content or your list, your listing packet or buyer's packet, they're not going to go, oh wow, that logo makes me feel strong when I see it. But you want it to be your vibe, in a millennial saying, but without it being so to the fore, as we would say in music. You want it to be like it's a subconscious feeling they get.
Yes.
And so I really liked how she broke that down for me. And so as we were going through all these logos, other ones were really pretty and very colorful. And I feel like I'm a colorful person and I'm bubbly and all that.
Tell by your nails today.
Yeah. Pretty blue. And I've got, colorful tattoos on me. But people will she said this to me, she's like, people will get that from you when they meet you. But when they're looking at when it comes down to the biggest transaction of their life, they want somebody strong and who has great style and aesthetic. Like they know what they're doing. They know what's high quality, basically.
Credibility, confidence.
Yes. And so when we're looking at different logos, like the one we chose, which is like my full name, Elizabeth Elliott, not Liz Sells Jacks, but like my full name. And then it's sitting on a foundation of people before property in black. And I was like, that's me. I love the aesthetic of it. It's the kind of house. I told her, I was like, this logo looks like the kind of house I would buy. Whereas other ones with the curly Q Elizabeth, like that were all in script and cursive. That's how I would sign my name. And I love blue and green. And I would have totally chosen that logo if I was going to go be an art teacher or something. But I'm a real estate agent. I want it to be strong and I want it to match the aesthetic of the homes I love. And so we ended up choosing the logo that we chose because of that. And I feel like I can put it on anything. It'll look great. So she's just very smart.
That's seriously high level. I think the 99.9% of the agents out there did not put that time into that because they don't know. They're not hiring some New York advertising firm to spend their time and charge you a lot of money for that. That's where Erin just shines in that area, and the fact that to add that value to. Did you really? Before you mentioned Howard and Keith, even last week when I congratulated you on your movie. So I think Howard and Keith, I match with them. Did you even play Erin into your decision?
Well, it was so funny. I already knew her before. I didn't realize I knew her, but she and I go to the same gym, and so when I had talked to a couple people about coming over here, they're like, "Oh yeah, Erin's over there. Erin from Phoenix Fitness." I'm like, oh, and so I walked in on the first day and she recognized me, but like, it was just kind of like, oh, we already, like, we run in the same circles. So that was a really cool thing. And then of course, in my interview with Howard and Keith, like find out like my preferred lender is a preferred lender here. Like we already know the same people. We like to work with the same people. We have the same philosophies on life. So Erin did play into it because she's so bubbly and kind. She was only there for the first 2 minutes because she had to leave, but it's that feeling of she waited for me to get here for my interview because I had a sick kid. I had to bring along. She waited for me to get here with him so she could say hi, and then she had to dip out. But it was just like that warm welcome of everybody's here. We're all here to meet you. We're so excited you're here. That was wonderful. But
well, I hope to see. I know they got their green room down there, and see you. Dig into that video.
Yeah.
Which leads me to,
Can't wait.
You have a strong Instagram. What is your attitude? Well, let's start with Facebook. What is your attitude about Facebook?
Oh, Lord have mercy. It's changing, ever changing. I feel like technology is always changing. It's like, what's the next thing? TikTok. I got to get a TikTok. But Facebook.
To me, Facebook is the foundation. The rest of them have all kind of. That's how I see it. I see Facebook is like everybody sort of does, but only some people do Instagram.
Well, it depends on the generation you're talking to. Because I will say, if you're talking to my dad, then he agrees with you. Like, he's all up on his Facebook.
I can say I'm old enough to be your dad.
No, well, I don't know. But I will say it's generational. Like, I would say my parents are all up on Facebook. They don't have Instagram. And then the younger kids are, like, getting off Instagram and getting on TikTok and Be Real. Those are some new ones. And for me and my niche is on Instagram. Like, those are where my buyers are. That's the demographic that I'm trying to reach, are people in their 30s and 40s and 20s that are ready to buy a house.
Families, and they're growing families, or they're buying their first home.
Yeah. I feel like that's just where people are more. And I share the content over to Facebook, but the engagement I get is mostly through Instagram. I do get some messages back from the stories that get shared to Facebook. And I have a ton of, I have a lot more like personal friends on my Facebook page. So it's weird because I've got like 5,000 musicians on my Facebook page, but they're from all over the country. Right. So I'll get messages. I've got like 3 outgoing referrals right now that are going to close in like Virginia and North Carolina because of the Army. So when I have an Army friend who's PCSing, but they're in Virginia, like hook them up with another agent up there, and they're going to buy and sell. You know, I have another friend who's going to buy and sell in North Carolina. Set him up with an agent. Like if you are putting it out there that you can help people no matter where they are in the country, like you just have to keep reiterating that, and then over time, when they have a question, hey, I have a question about my VA loan. Sure, let me answer that for you. And then let me set you up with an agent, and like it all works out. But you just gotta just keep going. But I have gotten some through Facebook. I would say maybe like 30%, and then the rest are through Instagram.
So I feel YouTube's not social media. It's because it's not although YouTube has the shorts, their version of their reels. It's not a platform though you can comment, it's not a setup to necessarily be
like a conversation.
The conversation that you may have. There's no direct messaging with, you can't message someone through YouTube. You can comment on their video and so forth. Are you taking your those Instagram reels, are you putting? I didn't have a chance to really even look. Are you putting them on the YouTube and filing them there?
Stay tuned, because my YouTube channel will be launching very soon.
Cool.
I've been working with Lane Pittman, who's the Florida guy, 904 on Instagram. But he and I have been working together for like a month on my first YouTube video. And it's just going to be hey, here I am. This is me. This is my kids on the beach. This is my parents. This is my husband. Like, it's more of a like, let's get to know you kind of thing. And then that'll be my first video. And I've already...
Well, you're going to have this video.
Yeah,
this is going to
I can put this on there. Yeah. I've already shot with Erin. We've done a marketing hug video as well. Short little... She's so efficient. It was like done in 10 minutes. And so, I just want it to be really high quality. Like YouTube lives forever, and I just want it to be super high quality before I start it.
100%. I mean, and that's one of the things I tell a lot of agents who, a common question I get for someone who's not really interested about the show is, what is going to be the topic? And I said, well, the topic is you. We're going to talk about you, because I really would, my logo is on there and everything. But when someone searches on Google, that you will see the YouTube video up. You're going to see the, Apple Podcast is going to pop up there as well in there. And it's someone, who's Googling you. So they say, oh, there's a podcast? Oh, there's this full-length video where she's talking and interacting and telling her about your story. That's one of the, the goals of me is for agents to call me and say, hey, thank you for having me on the podcast. I had a client Googled me, said they saw my or listened to my podcast or saw the video, whatever it may be. Because Google, obviously, YouTube together, they're a search engine. It's a huge search engine. And people would rather watch video,
adds to your credibility.
Said. Yeah. They'd rather watch the video of you talking versus reading something, typically.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. You've worked, we mentioned you've worked for a couple of different brokerages, so you obviously were open to suggestion to move, or maybe during this whole time you were searching. Only you know the answer to that question. But what is it that? Well, I feel that a lot of agents, they move brokerages oftentimes because they no longer see, they're not getting the value, or maybe they go there thinking there's a value there, but it's not the value that they envision when they actually get in there and start, working with the people. What are some of the, because I think if you went somewhere and they were pouring in the value that you needed, you obviously would have stayed. Right. Yeah. So what is it that you think some of them were missing? Or if you were doing an exit interview with that broker you were leaving with, what are some of the things that maybe you would advise them that, say, you gave me the vision of this and it wasn't, or, what would you tell them?
Well, I will say, like, you go where you feel like you need to go at that moment. Like, everybody's making the best decision that they can with the information that they have in that moment. So when I started out, I went to the brokerage I thought I needed to go to. And then when I start realizing more of, like, where I start to feel like a square peg in a round hole, you start to go, okay, what am I missing here? And then you start to interview. And I interviewed a couple. At that time, going from my first to my second, I only interviewed a couple. And that's when you start to learn about splits. It's like when you leave your first brokerage and you go to your second, that's when you start to learn about splits. And then at that moment, I was like, oh, I really love how transparent they're being. You know, I wanted transparency when I was leaving my first brokerage. I wanted transparency about numbers because that's something I felt I was lacking in the first one. And then as I was leaving my second one, it was not about numbers for me. It's like, okay, I understand splits. I understand leads and I understand Zillow, all that stuff. I needed to be in a place where where the value was there. You know, like if I'm going to be paying a huge split, which at Round Table I'm not, but like if you're on a team,
it's got to be competitive. I mean, it's so competitive right now.
Yes, absolutely. And you know, I learned a ton about splits when I was interviewing brokerages, which is awesome. But if you're going to be paying into a brokerage, you want there to be some value in return. And I think when I came to Round Table, I was like, man, I'm going to be getting a lot more value for the money that they'll be getting.
You might be willing to pay a little bit more.
Yes.
Because of the value.
Yes, rather than I'm paying a lot into this and I feel like I'm not getting much back. You know, and then especially I will recommend that if you're on a team, but you generate all your own leads from your sphere, then you should get off the team. And I think it took me a lot too long to realize that. I was like, I feel like I'm losing money here. And so I needed to make a decision.
Did the team give you some other value?
I would say
your growth being a new real estate agent?
What I got out of the team was the camaraderie. And like, that's what I wanted to take with me when I came to Round Table. Like didn't necessarily need it to be the team as like organized like a team as far as like financially goes and the way it's set up. But I did want to take with me like that feeling of being part of something. Part
of the Round Table team as a whole. Whether you know, because I know he's got teams down there and a lot of solo agents. So there's a lot of different things going on.
Right. I want to be I want to be my own brand. I don't want to be building up someone else's brand. Like everything I was doing under a team was to support that system and to prop it up. And for me, I'm like, that was too army for me. Like that was like, you're working for a CO and everything has to fall in line with that. For me, and Howard was big on this in my interview with him. Like Round Table is like, we want to build your brand. We want you to dive into you and build your business on that and build your business in your name. And that's what's going to make me successful. At the end of the day, buyers don't care who your brokerage is.
No,
they really
don't even know.
I had a guy under contract when I went from my first to my second. I don't even think he knew I changed brokerages until my email signature changed, and your email bounces back, and you're like, "Here's my new email address." You know, they don't care because they're going to continue to work with you no matter where you go because they trust you. And same thing, as I went from the team I was on to the new brokerage, it's like I have buyers still working with me like, hey, just so you know, I switched brokerages. I have a depth of knowledge at my fingertips now. My brokers are amazing. Awesome. Great. Like they're my friends. They're like, we're so happy for you. This is great.
Yeah.
They want to see you succeed. People working with you, they want to see you succeed.
Right.
So that's what I would say as you interview brokerages. Like,
I want to go back to a question we had, or you're talking to your girlfriend. She's thinking about getting into real estate, and you said to go interview with the brokers, right? To feel out the brokers, and we talked a little bit about knowing yourself, knowing different people have different needs. Some people need that team.
Yeah, absolutely,
that whole, situation. So you need to discover that. But truly, would you agree the only way they can really start to learn some of that is really actually talking with the soldiers on the ground, the real estate agents that are out there doing it. Yeah. And I mean, how much would you agree differently? Would you have spent more time actually trying to interview agents? Yeah, actually sitting down with Shonda before
that would have been great.
Yeah, to talking to some of these people and looking them up, in having coffee or having lunch with them to dig in. Just to give you that little, you talk to brokers, but now you actually talk to the real estate agents.
Yeah, you should.
Because brokers is that interview where there's a friend of mine, two people lying to each other, right? And now you get talking to the agent, they're like, yeah, this is how it is.
Right,
This is what it is. Yeah. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't.
Yeah, right? When you're interviewing brokerages, they're going to be like, well, this person was with us and they left, but here's their numbers. And it's like, wow. Man, okay. I wonder if what the reason for them leaving is actually why they left. And then after you join, then you find out the real reason. You're like, oh, well, they weren't being fully transparent with me. Yeah. So I would, try and find that stuff out beforehand. For me, I didn't. I found it out after, like why that person left. Oh, okay. So yeah, what I loved when I was in my interview with Howard and Keith was, hey, here's some business cards of some agents that we have. This person just came to us from this team. This person just came to us, and go call them. That's the transparency I need. I want you to give me people. It's like when you interview a nanny or a babysitter. Give me your references, please.
Well, it's interesting you say that because a lot of the agents have said that. I think of Kim Knapp over there because she has referred some great people away. They went and they end up at another brokerage. She's like, oh, go talk to other brokerage. Really, they need to talk to the agents. I mean, you talk to the broker because that's going to be the person running the show. You want to know who you hopefully is giving you the education and how they want to, the attitude because you like the office scene. But really talk to the agents and what really actually happens and why they could be off on their own in one of these. I think of Erica down there. She could go, work at an EXP or Florida Homes who may take a lot less or cut, but it's totally virtual. Why does she keep coming to the office? There's a reason for that. Right. And
because she's getting a nugget every single day. And she's pouring into people. Like I can just grab her and be like, hey, Erica, can you come look at this listing I have coming up?
Yeah.
And she'll sit there and be like, hey, make sure you do this and this, and then she goes about her day. Like I'm sure she gets, some kind of warm fuzzy from pouring into new agents too.
There's no doubt. I mean, people that's just, I mean, I'm sure through your music career, people coming up and asking you for advice.
Yeah.
Hey, it adds, it's an ego shot.
Yeah.
If you want to call it that. Anything else you want to add on here to our conversation? What have we not talked about?
Gosh, I was going to talk about when you're on a team and when you're, thinking about switching brokerages. The other thing I would say is talk to the lenders and talk to the title people and the inspectors, because those are the people who work
they would recommend.
Yeah, I mean, that was
talk to
because it's kind of a tricky situation when you're going through that. You realize I'm going to need to do something to get more value out of where I'm at. It's hard to talk to your teammates about that. And it's also hard to talk to other realtors about that too. And so for me, it was like, I'm going to talk to my title friends, my lender friends, my inspector friends, because they work with all the agencies. And I just would be like, who are your favorite agencies to work with? Who are the most organized? Who are the most humble? Who have the great reputations, And then where do you, out of all those agents, where do you see me fitting in? Where do you think I would vibe best? And so I would listen to these people that I respected, tops.
I think a lot of people kind of keep that undercover because when you start those conversations,
then it's something's going to spread. Yeah. Well, I'm sure that happened too. Yeah. But once you're kind of like, hey, once you've made that decision, I'm for sure going to switch, then you just stop caring and you're like, okay, I need to go where I need to go, and please help me make that decision. And I think that's the best thing I did was I listened to people that I respected, and I said, give me a list of the top 5 people I should go talk to. And then I compile those lists and I go, okay, I'm going to go do that and then see for myself what they're talking about.
I always think real estate agents should actually talk to some of the lenders when they're trying to choose who to do title with. Now, I will say this. I've been saying this for years, that I have just a handful of title companies that if someone, if I'm doing a refinance, I'll try to guide them to that title company because I have somewhat control over it at that point. Hands down, don't have to worry about anything. Their people are all over it. Where there's these other companies that most of them is because title is not actually their main thing. And you have or insurance is another thing, but the interaction, the cause of delay, the reaction time, and so forth. Some of these title companies are amazing, and it's like, why do you even bother with some of the others? Insurance, same thing. There's insurance agents where all of a sudden a closing gets moved. I was working new construction for 3 of the last 4.5 years, and that got moved a lot. And you call insurance, they're like, oh well, because you need the date to be changed or whatever. And it's like you would think, you were trying to do something, an act of God or something,
right.
And so it's going to take all this time. So having those people and knowing, you're right. I mean, whether you're asking lenders, find out who has the reputations,
yes,
and then obviously back it up with a story where they've experienced that's very good advice.
Yeah,
actually.
Howard and Keith have an amazing reputation, and that was something that I really cared about because that follows you, even though you are your own business owner. Who you work for says a lot about you. And I told Howard and Keith, I'm like, I need you guys. Do you have a good reputation? Down to your core, down to your heart of hearts. am I going to hear stories later on? Like, I need to know that you have a great reputation, that I'm not going to hear from some inspection or inspector that you acted like a baby 10 years ago on some transaction. Like, I want you to guys, I don't want to hear bad stories, you know? And so that's, I think
everyone clashes in personality somewhere, but there's no doubt. I mean, Howard was my 21st episode. I had on.
It's funny you remember the number.
Because I actually went through what I'm doing right now is I'm actually getting the transcripts from each of the shows, and I've been saying it for a year that I'm going to write a book, because I want to write a book of what's the commonalities, and I think I want to name the book. One of my thought is, so you want to be a real estate agent, and these are the commonalities that all the agents are bringing up, you know, in their different things. So I was going through and pulling the transcripts and so forth, and so David Heekin was 20 and he was 21. I mean, probably the two most reputable guys that everyone knows. There's a lot of other people out there that I don't know everyone in real estate. Finding these people are humbly doing their business and doing it at a great level, and I'm like, wow, look at those numbers. I didn't even know this person even existed, and then each day you grow. So I appreciate you coming on. I think your story was awesome. I did not obviously had no idea of your story whatsoever, and I'm glad we had the conversation. Hopefully a lot of people watch it and hear